County Republican Party and the Covington County Republican Women, we welcome you. The purpose of our forum tonight is to meet our 3rd Congressional District candidates and to learn more about their platforms. I want to say a thank you to anybody that donated money tonight to make this event happen, the Covington County Republican Party for organizing and setting up the event, the Covington County Republican Women for providing refreshments, and all of you for taking your time to be here tonight. I'd like to just recognize the candidates on stage, and they'll be introduced later. We have Sally Doty, Morgan Dunn, Michael Guest, Whit Hughes, Harry Parker, and Catherine Tate. And we're so glad that all of them could be here with us tonight. We also have with us tonight the GOP Executive Director, Lucius Smith. There he is.
Thanks to you.
The state officials that we'd like to recognize, we have Representative Noah Stanford. We also have from our county, we have Justice Court Judge John Lance Sanford. You might need to get to know him. And from our cities, we have Rick Hucks, Mayor of Seminary, and Hope Jones, Mayor of Collins. I'd also like to announce April the 24th, friends of Joey Fillingame and Noah Stanford are going to have an appreciation dinner here at the Civic Center. Tickets are $30 for individuals, $50 for a couple, and we would love for all of you to come and help us show our appreciation to these two. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, since this is the first time that we've had a chance to meet you, would you like to address our group a minute?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you all for having me here. I wanted to first just say thank you for putting this together. This is no small undertaking, but it's important that folks have the opportunity to see the folks who want to work for them. So I thought we could offer a round of applause to Janice and all the people who've worked to make tonight a possibility. Thanks also to these candidates up here. Every one of them would do a tremendous job. They're all good conservatives, and they'd all represent us well in Washington. It's no small undertaking to run for office, and I want to thank all of them for putting themselves out there. You know, it is a very exciting time to be a Republican. We've got Donald Trump in the White House. We've got a Republican majority in the House. We've got a Republican majority in the Senate, and we're starting to get things done. We've got good conservative judges getting appointed and confirmed by the Senate. We're getting our warfighters the resources they need. We've got a president who's not afraid to stand up to bullies around the world, and because we have a strong America, we've got a more safe America. We've seen tax reform that's made America more competitive in the global economy. All of that is a direct result of having Republicans in office. But it's come at a cost. And the cost is that the Democrats are mad at us. Generally speaking, I think when the Democrats are mad at us, we're doing a good thing, and that's certainly true here. But it means we've got to get ready in 2018, because we're fixing to see a wave of Democratic money and Democratic activism in Mississippi like you've never seen. They look over at what happened in Alabama, and they think they can come over here and pick up a seat from us. I have no doubt that the 3rd Congressional District is going to stay in Republican hands. I have no doubt that our 2 Senate seats are going to stay in Republican hands, but I'm going to ask you to do 3 things to make sure that happens. The first is, I hope you'll work harder than you've ever worked, because this is going to be a fight like we haven't seen. If Janice doesn't have your name down as somebody who's ready to work between June and November, I hope you won't leave tonight until you make sure she's got it. The second thing is, I hope we'll get ready to give more than we've ever given, because this is going to be expensive. We got Hollywood money, we got East Coast money, We got George Soros money all fixing to get invested in Mississippi to try to steal seats that should be in Republican hands. So if you're not a member of the United Republican Fund, our grassroots fundraising effort, I hope you'll join. You can call us at the party or go to msgop.org and we'll get you signed up. And the last thing I'll ask of you is to stay united, because that's what the Democrats most hope. You know, we've got 6 great candidates. One of them's going to be the Republican nominee. And the supporters of the other 5 are going to be disappointed. And the Democrats are going to hope we're going to be disappointed enough that come November we're going to stay at home. They hope the same thing in the Senate races, that we're going to be disappointed enough that we're not going to show up and vote for the Republican in November. I need you to remember this, and I need you to tell it to every person who believes like we do. If you don't show up to vote for the Republican in November, you are choosing Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, and you're choosing Chuck Schumer to be Majority Leader. I'll say that one more time, and then I'll get out of the way of the candidates here who actually need to talk to you. If you don't show up in November, you're casting a vote for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and you'll bring to a grinding halt all the great work that's coming out of Washington right now. So thank y'all for all you do. Thank y'all very much for running, and let's work together to make sure we keep on making this great country even greater. Thank y'all very much.
Good evening, all you deplorables. Are you still hugging your Bibles and toting your gun? Well, I sure hope so. Isn't this great? 6 candidates standing for election to be the servant of the people of District 3. Who remembers that time when we would ask a candidate if they would run as a Republican, and he would reply, "Oh, I gotta run as a Democrat. I can't get elected if I run as a Republican." You can't beat that. All 6 of these candidates are ones that we can be proud of as citizens here in District 3. Our founding fathers wanted us to have a citizens' government. They wanted the citizens of this nation to look upon public service the same way that a man joined the militia to protect his family and his home. They did not intend for career politicians to use public service as a way to create power and great wealth. And that is what is wrong with our country today. That people go into government or public service not to serve the people, not to fulfill the dream of this country, but to use it through corruption, seeking power as a way to build wealth. Benjamin Franklin at the Constitutional Convention remarked that we have a representative government if we can keep it. And tonight, I hope we will make it our business to keep our representative government. Our 6 candidates bring us a wealth of knowledge and experience. We have 2 lawyers, Senator Sally Doty, I knew I'd say it wrong, of Brookhaven. She serves as a senator in our state legislature, making laws for us. And then we have District Attorney Michael Guest of Brandon, who prosecutes people who fail to obey the laws in Madison and Rankin County. The irony is that in our contemporary society, we have some who believe they are above the law, that they don't have to obey the law that the rest of us do. And then we have those good people out in California and Chicago and in the East that think they can pick and choose what laws they want to obey. We must, if we're going to have a strong country, restore justice under the law for everyone. Then we have 2 candidates from the health care field. Ms. Morgan Donna McGee is a managing director of Vestra, a healthcare consulting firm. And Mr. Whit Hughes of Jackson is an executive with the Baptist Healthcare Systems. Each of us have healthcare concerns: insurance coverage, local hospitals, nursing homes and rehab centers, alcohol and drug addiction are current problems. We have the best medical care in the world, but how do we make it affordable and accessible to everyone? Mr. Perry Parker is a retired financial person from here in seminary. Our current national debt is over $21 trillion and growing. Can you imagine someone in Congress able to do simple math and understand basic economy, that if you don't have the cash money in your hand, you can't afford borrowing money and getting deeper in debt? Miss Catherine Tate of Tupelo is an educational consultant. Critics claiming that the United States educational system is comparable to that of third world countries and no longer the best in the world. We cannot be satisfied with this. The success of all other professions depend on a good and sound education for our people. Our procedure tonight is simple and straightforward. Each candidate is drawn a number for the order in which he will speak. He will have 3 or 5 minutes to introduce himself and discuss what motivated him to enter the congressional race. Questions have been presented to me tonight, and I want to express my appreciation for everyone who submitted a question. And I'm glad I don't have to answer some of them. The candidate receiving the question will have 2 minutes to answer that question. And if the other candidates want to respond, they will have a minute. Jacob Stroud, the Vice Chairman of Covington County Republican Party, is serving as our timekeeper. We realize these few minutes is not nearly enough time to adequately discuss these issues. We would be here all night on one issue if we discussed it, but at least we will touch on them and get an understanding of how the candidate feels about them. Before we start, I want to thank Vince Thornton, our treasurer, for setting up the sound system for us. Our member-at-large, Barbara Harris, arranged our stage. Secretary Yvonne Dees is taking memberships for our county party and our Republican Women. We also have for you a newsletter and a refrigerator magnet, and if you need some to convert some Democrats to come our way of thinking, take some extras, and maybe if they looked at them every day, they may see the light. We do appreciate those who donated to cover the expenses of renting the Civic Center and our printing needs, and those who helped set up chairs and tables. Our first candidate is Mr. Hughes. He was obliged to get here, and he gets to speak before he even has a chance to settle down.
Thank you, Janice. Good evening. Good evening. Oh, come on now. We got to loosen up a little bit. Let's have some fun with this. Good evening. Good evening. All right. I appreciate that introduction. And I do want to thank you and everybody else that has organized this event. This really is an important opportunity to learn more about all the candidates. And I encourage you to listen closely and really think about who you feel is the best person for this job. I'm not sure I've ever had a timekeeper standing right behind me, so maybe he'll, I don't know, are you going to make a noise or something? I got you. Hey, I really appreciate Lucian Smith being here. I almost broke out the pom-poms earlier when he started preaching about the importance of these midterm elections, but Lucian is a good friend, and Lucian, I really appreciate your strong leadership of our party on a statewide level, so thank you for taking the time to be here. I want to acknowledge all the other candidates. We're crossing paths with each other on the campaign trail now, getting to know each other a little bit better. But to echo what you heard earlier, you don't enter a race like this lightly. And so I just wanted to say to all of them, I really respect you all for being in this race, and I look forward to spending time around you in the weeks ahead. Now, I'm a little slow, but I'm smart enough that I don't need to go any further without acknowledging my wife, Shelley, who's here. This is the most supportive wife imaginable. And Shelley, I just love you for your approach to living life and your attitude about us jumping in this race. So thank you so much for all you're doing and for being here tonight. Several members of my staff here, I'm not going to go into detail, but y'all, look, I appreciate you. It's hard work to start a campaign from scratch, and I'm really, really proud of everything we've accomplished in a short amount of time, and I want y'all to know that means a lot to me. Give you a quick snapshot of my personal background. Shelley and I are both from the Jackson area, both went to Mississippi State. I played 2 years of baseball and 5 years of basketball there. Got into politics after that. I've been involved in conservative politics on a national level through the RNC. I helped run the Republican Eagles program at the RNC, helping elect conservatives around the country. A lot of conservative politics on statewide levels, helping folks like Elizabeth Dole in her first Senate race in North Carolina. And then over the course of time, Shelley and I eventually moved back home in 2003 to help Haley Barbour in his first run for governor. So we've been living in Madison since 2003. We have 15 and 13-year-old sons and a 10-year-old daughter. I've gone on to do economic development for the state. I was Deputy Director of Mississippi Development Authority for a period of time. I've owned and operated my own consulting business. I have been in the healthcare industry as part of the administrative team at Baptist Health Systems. I've been the Chief Development Officer there for about the past 5 years. I will tell you, as a matter of clarification, that I've resigned that position to enter this race. Can't necessarily be a political candidate and be involved in a nonprofit organization. And I respect that team and that organization, so the right thing to do was for me to resign. So I tell people that I'm serious about this. Married, 3 children, left a great job with a great organization to do this. And Shelley and I know what it takes to run a successful campaign. It's hard work, and we know that. More importantly, we know what it's like to serve in a position like this. And so this is a very serious step that we've taken seriously. But we also believe this is the right step. It's the right step for me personally, it's the right step for us, and it's the right step for our family. We don't necessarily wear our faith on our sleeves, but I can tell you that from a faith standpoint, we feel led in this direction. We feel like we're answering a call to service. And we feel like we're prepared for this. And honestly, we feel like I'm the best person for the job. And when it reaches that point, it's important to jump in and go after it. And that's what we've done. I've been in this race for about 9.5 or 10 weeks. I jumped in, and I really believe I've grabbed all the momentum in this race, and I'll tell you why. Number one is how hard we're working. The first 3 weeks of this race, we went to all 24 counties. We've continued to campaign in all 24 counties. That's what voters want. That's what they deserve. And I believe that's allowed us to connect with people in a real genuine way in a short period of time. The other thing is, people know that I'm doing this because I care. I'm clearly not a career politician that's in this race looking to just climb the ladder and hold higher office. I'm doing this for the right reasons. I'm doing this because I believe I'm the best person to fight for you and your family and your community and the conservative issues that matter to us. Let's talk a little bit about timing. When Congressman Harper announced that he was not going to run for re-election, you're really talking about a 4-month time frame. That's not a lot of time. Certainly not a lot of time in the context of a political campaign. And so now here we are, roughly 60 days away from the election. And, but I can tell you, I believe that plays in my favor. I know people all over the district, they know me, they trust me, and my background and experience is right in line with what's on people's minds right now. They're interested in more jobs, a stronger economy, leadership with a backbone, and somebody that understands economic development and can help bring opportunities to their community. So I was the last one to get here. I'll tell you why. Shelley and I started today on a tour of all 24 counties in 48 hours. A little aggressive, but again, I think it's the right thing to do. That's what voters want. They want you to knock on the door, they want you to look them in the eye, and they want you to ask for their support and for their vote. So we started with this campaign. We're going to all 24 counties in 48 hours. We've released our policy priorities and something we're calling WIT's game plan. To this point, we talked a lot about just helping people learn more about me and why I'm running. Now we've shifted to start talking about what I'm for and what I'll do representing you in Congress. Again, I look forward to this opportunity. I appreciate being here. And as I've said to others, I'll share with you right now. I believe we're going to be successful in this race for the same reasons I've been successful with everything else in life. Whether you're talking about SEC athletics, conservative politics, economic development, consulting, or healthcare, we're going to be successful because we're willing to work harder than anybody else in this race. I look forward to the question and answer session. And also, if I didn't get to have an opportunity to visit with you at the beginning, I look forward to talking to you afterwards. Thanks so much.
Just tap me, okay? Just tap me on the back. Thank y'all for having me. I'm not going to do the introduction you did. I think I would concur with your introduction. Thanking everybody. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. These are my stomping grounds. Covington County, Perry, yes, I know you live here. But Covington County is my stomping grounds too. I actually see Simpson County, Smith County. Am I leaving out another county? This is God's country in my opinion. I live about 10 miles that way. My husband is not here. Unfortunately, he's coaching my 8-year-old in baseball tonight. Our 11-year-old daughter has softball currently going on right now. And our 13-year-old son has batting practice in about 30 minutes. So he, unfortunately, was not able to make it. My father, however, is here, Joe McNulty. And that's going to intro into my experience. I think 3 things make up an individual: faith, family, and your experience. Those 3 things are really what take you through life and decisions that you make. Faith, Christian, you know, we've been married 15 years. That's the cornerstone of our marriage. It's the cornerstone of our kids. If it was a Wednesday night, especially this week, we have Bible drills that we've been preparing for the last 8 weeks. I would have had to miss it. My daughter would not have allowed me to come here. My family, I just told you my family. We are from McGee, born and raised. Actually, I was born in Jackson because McGee didn't deliver babies. Born and raised in McGee, Mississippi. I'm a Simpson County girl. My husband, Simpson County, he and I own a restaurant that his grandfather started 55 years ago. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, and that would be Zip's Cafe. That was his grandfather, Zip's. We have the best hamburger in the state. We actually buy our beef from Covington County. Ching. Okay. So small business is important to not only myself, but to our family. We probably populate 1/4 of McGee between my family and my husband's family. Our kids there. We want our kids to grow in McGee, live in Simpson County, or at least be in the state. So the last 15 years, well, let me back up. The last 35 years, my dad started a small business. Physical therapy, rural hospitals. It was a $175 million company in 2016. I've been put on payment reform committees, been to the White House. I've done the whole federal side. I've changed policy in the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So if you'd have asked me 5 years ago what I was going to be doing today, it was not standing up here trying to convince you that I'm the perfect candidate to be in the House of Representatives. I was supposed to be running Pioneer Health Services, and we filed Chapter 11 back in March of 2016. Not because we weren't successful in business. It was because of the federal government. When Obamacare hit back in 2010, and then we had 2% sequestration hit off of all of our payments, we ran hospitals like Covington County Hospital. We actually were partnered here in Covington County for many years. What we did was critical access hospitals. That's what's here. They get paid 101% of cost. Now, if you get hit by 2% on all payments across the board, that's not hard math. You don't even get your costs covered. Then you're mandated by the federal government to put in infrastructure to support an electronic health record. $14 million of infrastructure. Do you know what's significant about that? That when they came out with those laws in 2010 and we started developing it, we're 49th in the state. I mean, we're 49th out of all the states in internet and broadband connectivity. Let me repeat. We are ranked 49th in the United States on internet and broadband connectivity. And Obamacare came out and required us to put in an electronic health record that has to have more than 17 megabytes, which is the state average, let me say. So the government put it on our small business backs to make sure our electronic infrastructure, we would run T1 lines in our rural locations. Crap! I'll be quick, okay? I understand healthcare like way more than anybody should absolutely understand it. I understand all aspects. Patient, provider, insurance. I can fix it. They put me on committees in DC to fix it. We just have numbskulls up there right now that don't listen. President Trump listens. He's putting things in place. He's not pulling it all out. You can't pull it all out. That train left the station 8 years ago. You have to do exactly what he's doing and pulling it out piece by piece so you don't close the hospitals that we currently have and you don't force providers and physicians to retire. I can fix healthcare. There are 3 things that prop up an economy, and I'm going to be quick, I promise. Healthcare, education, and small business. If those 3 don't work, you don't have a successful economy. Education is the single most important thing that we have for our children and our grandkids right now, and we are in the high 40s. We're the 3rd highest state to lose our millennials. So basically what that means is that we're not getting companies in that are coming back to the United States, to Mississippi, because we don't have the infrastructure to support them. So what that means to me is my children and my grandchildren and my husband are going to have to fly out of state to see our grandchildren and our children. That's why I'm up here today. I'm not going to be a politician that you're going to talk to in 30 years in the same seat that I'm running for today. I plan on making a difference, making a positive impact for our state and our district because we've been left out. I was the only person, I was the only person that actually represented rural outside of the DC metropolitan area from the association's perspective when I went on payment reform. We're not thought about. We're different. Okay? Y'all can talk to me afterwards because I can go on and on. Clearly, they're yelling at me and I got people telling me. Please, I tried to introduce myself to everybody. I will wait until the doors close. Come talk to me. I need your vote because I can make a difference in Washington, D.C. and positively impact Mississippi. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to thank the Covington County Republican Party, the Covington County Republican Women for putting on tonight's forum. I look forward this evening to sharing with you my background, sharing with you my beliefs, sharing with you what I hope to accomplish for the people of Mississippi. I'm honored to have with me tonight my wife of 20 years, Haley, my youngest son, Patton, behind them my parents, Pat and Terry Guest, behind them my in-laws, Tommy and Phyllis Kennedy. And if we've not had the opportunity to visit with you before this evening started, we hope that we'll have a chance before you leave tonight. For the last 22 years, I have fought to protect the people of Mississippi. I have fought to see that the guilty are convicted and that justice prevails. As district attorney, I've had the opportunity to work with the outstanding men and women of law enforcement, to work with our judicial officials, to protect our citizens from those that would prey upon others. I've had the opportunity to take drug dealers off the street who were selling drugs to our children. I've had the opportunity to see that those who commit violent offenses are held accountable for their actions. Since 2008, my office has prosecuted more than 20,000 felony cases. We've returned to law enforcement more than $20 million from those that would sell or transport illegal drugs. And our bad check unit has collected more than $3.5 million for our local merchants and businesses. I have dedicated my professional career to keeping our community safe and seeing that they remain great places to live and to worship and to raise a family. The people of Madison and Rankin County have entrusted me with their support. They've trusted me to fight on their behalf, and for their trust I am forever grateful. But tonight, throughout this campaign, I'm asking for your support, that you would allow me to go to Washington and fight on behalf of the people of the 3rd Congressional District. I believe that we need a strong conservative congressman. We need a congressman who has a proven record for fighting for what is right. We need a congressman who will work with our president to see that tax cuts are not a one-time isolated event, but will work to see that we continue to lower taxes and reduce regulations. We need a congressman who will work to see that our aging infrastructure needs are met. Our roads, our bridges, our water, our sewage. These are local issues, these are state issues, and these are federal issues. As a prosecutor, I've prosecuted thousands of cases. The large majority of those are directly or indirectly related to the use of illegal drugs. We need a congressman who is going to work with our law enforcement to tackle the problems of drugs in our community. The opioid epidemic that we face must be addressed. We must provide those who are gripped with addiction the tools that they need to become productive members of society, while at the same time aggressively prosecuting those that would sell drugs on our street. As a lifelong conservative Republican, I believe in traditional family values. I believe in limited government. Believe in lower taxes. Believe in reduced regulation. I believe in fighting for the rights of the unborn. I believe in a strong national defense. I believe in honoring the promise that we've made our veterans. And I believe in protecting our Second Amendment rights and all the other rights that we have been granted under our United States Constitution. I pledge to you that if you will send me to Washington, D.C., that I will work every day to make you proud. I pledge that I will work to try to leave a better country for our children and for our grandchildren. I pledge that I will see that we will forever remain one nation under God. Thank you for having us this evening. I thank you for what you are doing on behalf of the Republican Party. May God bless you. May God bless the great state of Mississippi. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. I'll have to tell you, the first place that I visited when I decided to run for office in the 3rd Congressional District was the Covington County. That's what I was afraid of. Can you turn this up? Is it on? Should I use another one because I'm not very loud? It's okay.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. Okay, can you hear me now? I think that's better. When I visited the Covington County Republican Women, I decided I would tell you this. I didn't tell Janice before, but I just thought, those ladies are well loved. Those are some lovely ladies, and I just say that again. Thank you so much. I think I've been working in some hard circumstances, and that just struck me, the loveliness of those ladies. So thank you. That was the first group that I visited. I also wanted to mention that Janice, in her introduction of me, said that I was in education and stated, and I hear this quite often, that the United States system of education is similar now to third world countries. I'm going to have to disagree with that. The third world countries that I've worked in, the education is much better. In Africa, you can visit the schools there, and they are not encumbered by huge bureaucracies, and they're doing better, in my view. In fact, Milton Friedman said that we deliver our education here in America the way the Soviets delivered agriculture. Who does that benefit? Not the poor, certainly. Only the upper echelon. I just want to read you a little bit of something that I put together because my message has to do with our founding principles, the faith of our founding fathers, which built this great land. We are united by a common goal, one nation under God. American colonists knew that living out true religion in the marketplace and in the public square would require humility before God and vigilance of every generation. For this purpose, they formally committed themselves and their posterity to the cause of preserving and propagating the truth and liberties of the gospel for their own mutual safety and welfare. And those aren't my words, those are from the Articles of Confederation of 1643. And the Articles of Confederation were the first document that the colonists came together as one and were not individual city-states. So I think that's important. Our founders brought to the New World radical ideals of sacred rights of individuals in matters of both religious freedom and political liberty. Formalized in colonial charters, state constitutions, and finally in the Declaration of Independence, a three-branch framework of government mirroring the triune God was formalized in the Constitution of the United States. Americans at that time clearly understood that the blessings of liberty are assured only to that nation who submits herself to the one true God. The powers of the new government were clearly limited and ordered to the protection of private property first and foremost. Only as an agency of protecting the individual citizen and his sacred right of ownership of his faith, his property, his work, his earnings, his labor, could government duly protect and establish a nation as one nation under God. For this cause, our founders pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, and I'm doing the same. Entering the political arena, you risk looking like a fool, and that's okay. I love our country, I love the message of the founders, and I know we didn't get everything right for a little while, but in the span of 6,000 years, I think the last 150 years, we have pretty much accomplished freedom and liberty of personal rights for all. My platform is term limits, true citizen government, as I think everybody else agrees, free market capitalism. The government's limited role is to protect private property rights and facilitate voluntary exchange of all goods and services, and that includes education, health care, and families and individuals, and America first. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sally Doty, and I'm currently serving in the State Senate, and we have said thank you to everybody here already, but I know one person we haven't said thank you to, and it is my colleague, Joey Fillingane, who snuck in the back door. So let's tell Joey thank you for his service. Glad to see him here tonight. So I'm from Brookhaven. I represent Lincoln, Lawrence, Copiah, and a little bit of Walthall County right now. At one time I had Simpson County until it was redistricted and taken out of my district. I have been there for 2 terms. So this is my 7th legislative session. As you all know, we finished up our legislative session for 2018 just last week. So in addition to serving in the legislature, I have been campaigning for this race as well. So I may need to, like Whit, go for 48 hours. I may need to go to every county. But we have been already around the district talking and listening to people, because I know from my service in the state legislature, that is what is important, is being your voice at the state capitol, or in this instance in DC. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am an attorney. I've done some different things throughout the years. When I first was out of law school, I practiced law in Jackson with a larger firm. I taught at MC at the law school for a while, and then went down to Brookhaven, where I've lived for the past 20 years, and did defense work for county and city governments for about 8 years. I took some time off and spent some extra time with my children, who are all out of the house now. Well, my last one is graduating from high school this year. In about a month he will be out. He had prom this weekend and he graduates in May. So as I began to think about this run for office, it was really the right time in my life. I know what a difficult job this is. Just from serving in the state legislature, I understand the time commitments, the seriousness of this position. So it's really the right time for me. I'm kind of looking at a few empty nest years ahead of me, and I'm ready to take on this responsibility. I have been at the state capitol for the past 7 years with a proven conservative track record of votes. We are all good Republicans up here. We are going to tell you pretty much the same things. So you have to look at what sets us apart. And the thing that sets me apart is I have already been accountable to voters. I've been accountable to my voters in District 39. I have voted to lower taxes. I have voted to keep our size of our state government down. I have voted to decrease regulations on some of our businesses in Mississippi, and to make Mississippi a more, a more business-friendly place. I'm sorry, I've had a cold, I can't shake. But I have that record of accountability, the record of conservative votes, that makes me different from the other candidates. I have an A rating by the NRA. We have voted on several different gun bills throughout the time of my service, so I'm proud to have that A rating. I have an A rating from BIPEC, which is a business and industry professional education consortium. A lot of businesses around the state, in other words. They come together each year and grade legislators on their votes during the session. And I've received an A every year. I've been named a business champion, in fact, every year for my conservative votes to help Mississippi be a better place to do business. I have a 100% pro-life voting record. And really, I am going to look at Senator Fillingane again today because of his bill that he led the charge on this year for a 15-week abortion ban. Very proud to vote on that. Although I do think it's already been tied up in federal court, but maybe we can get past that pretty soon. So I have all of those things that I have already done as part of the larger body in the state legislature. And then there are those things that I've worked on individually with a lot of help. You don't do anything in the state legislature. You know, it takes there's 52 of us in the Senate, 122 in the House, so you have to build those coalitions and have those groups with you. But I was instrumental in passing campaign finance reform. It took us 2 years to do it. We had a lot of politicians who are using their campaign money for personal expenses. Thank you. I'm gonna wind up here. I've had the experiences in the state legislature. I look forward to talking to each of you. I understand that I need to be a voice for the people of Covington County, whether it is for infrastructure for the lumber mill, whether it is ag-related issues for Sanderson Farms, whether it is energy for the tank farm here. There are specific instances to Covington County, and I will be that voice for you in DC. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thank you to the Republican Women. Thank you to the Republican Club. Thank you, Vince. When Ms. Harris called me and invited me tonight, I was so excited. This is home. It feels great to be home. My mother was born up the road in the Williamsburg community. My Aunt Virginia lives right behind the building. She might be feeling ill, so didn't make it out. But it's great to be here. Oh, she is? Okay, great. I did not see Aunt Virginia. Can we just recognize Aunt Virginia? Thank you so much. Okay, I'm truly honored to participate. This place gives me a great sense of pride. I've traveled all over the world, but Mississippi and Covington County is home. It gives me confidence to know that my family and friends are all in supporting Ida and I. In fact, they are so all in, they decided to have an intervention with me on Saturday morning. Now a group, some of whom are in this crowd, and I see you all, and my brothers and my sister met me on my front porch on Saturday morning. They said, "Perry, we're behind you and what you're doing. We're going to help you get this message out, but your public speaking is not good." They actually used much stronger language. It was a hard conversation, and I know they're right. I've been working on this speech since then. Standing in front of you is hard for me. I don't love this part of running for office. But you know what? I'm not running for public speaker. I'm running to be your congressman. Now we can all agree there's some givens regarding a candidate running from Mississippi's 3rd District. Your representative should be devoted to their family, a person of faith, and for Second Amendment rights. Ask anyone in this hall with a Parker sticker on, I am all of those things. There's a lot of Parker stickers too. Thank you. But you're going to hear that from every candidate here tonight. I think we have. I also believe in a strong military and protecting the promises made to our veterans. Those are strongly held beliefs. But I don't think anyone on this stage would disagree with me in any of those views. No, I want to talk to you tonight about why I am different and why those differences make me the best candidate to represent you in Congress. So I've taken the lessons learned competing here in the agricultural business in District 3, here at home, and applied them to competing in financial services around the world. We're going to take that experience and deliver the best services possible from this office to you, the citizens of the 3rd District. I am also different because I believe in term limits. Politics should not be about getting rich. Term limits will hold Congress accountable. And most importantly, I am different because I will use the power of this office to promote our great people and our resources, both of which are undervalued. We need to add investment to the mix of our people and our resources. I am uniquely qualified to do that. And too many of our children go to Dallas or Atlanta in search of opportunity that could and should be available in Mississippi. Together, we will grow incomes here for everyone It will all start with investment. And I am so thankful to be a Mississippian. God has blessed me with a loving family and a great career. To whom much is given, much is required. I want to serve. I'm going to leave you with something I've been saying a lot during this campaign. For Mississippi to do better, we must do something different. I represent something different. And tonight, I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you, and God bless.
And now the fun begins. This question is for all 6 candidates. Financing is an intrinsic component of a successful political campaign. I do not think many Republican voters would be offended if you as a candidate accepted a donation from the NRA or the local garden club. We, however, do need to know if any of you 6 candidates have accepted $1 million or any donation from any of George Soros' Destroy America hate organizations such as Antifa, Media Matters, MoveOn.org, or Southern Law Poverty Center. None of the voters here tonight, I can assure you, want to be guilty of supporting any candidate who uses violence, lies, and fake news to destroy America. Are any of you guilty?
Negative. That'll be a no.
Negative.
Whit, this question is directed to you, and then any others may answer. The $1.3 trillion omnibus bill recently signed by President Trump was 2,322 pages long, delivered to Congress 24 hours before Congress had to vote on the bill. Pelosi and Schumer gloated that the bill granted all the Democratic priorities. This bill was drafted by McConnell, Ryan, Pelosi, Schumer, the Appropriations Committee, of which Thad Cochran was chairman, and their staff. Other members of Congress were not given the opportunity to have input into the bill or to debate the bill. According to the news accounts, no one in Congress knew what they had been funded in this bill. This March 2018 omnibus bill expires September the 30th and will have projected deficit spending debt of $1 trillion to add to our national debt that is currently over $21 trillion. Conservative Americans are asking, what has changed? We have a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican President, yet Congress is still passing bills that cater to the Dems Port Project's special interests and does nothing to address our national debt. Congress passed the bill and the President signed this bill into law because it allocated $700 billion to rebuild our military. Fiscal responsibility is a cornerstone principle of the Republican Party, yet nothing has changed with backroom deals and pet port projects. If you are elected to Congress, will you go along to get along with the status quo, or will you join those members of Congress who are working to bring about reforms in Congress? What will be your motivation for either course of action? Whit.
Well, thank you. You might have just set a world record for questions like that.
People are fired up.
Well, glad to keep up with there. Listen, I wish you and I could go and start a common sense caucus in Washington, but I'm not sure that will be the only reality. We need more of that. Listen, I'm also bothered that they would drop a 2,200-page plus bill, I believe it was on a Wednesday, and basically get everybody heads up that they're voting on it on Friday. So yeah, that is bothersome. I think there's a better way to do business. There's a better way to manage the legislative process. I'd like to see more transparency and accountability along those lines. I will tell you that I am encouraged by the defense spending. This microphone's a little bit. Is that better? I will tell you I am encouraged by the defense spending. I believe I'm right in saying there was over $600 billion spent on defense. You know, I view that as a good step in the right direction. I'm not an expert on the bill, but I do recall that it involved pay increases for our troops. I want to say the 2.5% pay increase, the first increase they've had in 7 or 8 years. Had money to increase the size of our military, both in terms of active duty and reserve duty military. Had some funding to address healthcare needs in the context of our military. And it gave us the ability to secure new weapon systems and equipment and technology and assets like ships and aviation assets and others, even some that we build and manufacture here in Mississippi. So I do think I was encouraged by that. I will tell you that on a general level, my number one goal serving in Congress would be to create the kind of environment employers need that allows them to hire more people and pay people more money. We certainly got to do a better job of identifying priorities, establishing budgets, sticking to those budgets. We have to have strong regulatory and tax reform. We can't continue to spend more money than we take in and borrow from countries on the other side of the world that aren't necessarily our best friends. We can't continue to do that and expect different results. And representing you in Congress, I will certainly have strong conservative positions along those lines.
Mr. Parker.
I vote against the bill. First of all, I vote against the bill. Second of all, you can be for a strong military and for fiscal sanity at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. It was a bad bill, and they should still be working on it.
Does everybody want to answer? All right, we'll just go down the line.
You know, the House of Representatives is in charge of appropriation for our government. And it is poor government when you have a bill that is drafted by a handful of people, that no one else in the House has the ability to offer input, nobody can offer amendments. You are required to vote yea or nay without ever having read the bill. And so this is a terrible way for our government to function. The first priority of our government should be to create a budget, eventually a balanced budget, that we can live within our means. And so I agree with Perry Parker that I would not have voted for this bill. I think this is a bad bill, and I think we should not have voted to fund the government the way that we did.
Okay.
Clearly that would have been a no for me as well. There's a thing that's called the Balanced Budget Act. I think the last one that we had passed was, what, 1997? In business, your expenses don't drive your revenue and your budget. Your budget drives your expenses and drives where you're supposed to be. I don't know what happened in DC. I guess nobody has ever thought about putting together responsibility and accountability backing budgets. That's how you control your costs. Revenue in equals expenses out. You give the departments their budget based on the revenue we have coming in, and then that will balance what we're talking about. We can't afford to continue to go down the way we're going. That would be a no on both.
Sally.
I know one of the
I know one of the most important votes that you make in the beginning of a legislative session is a vote on the rules. And I believe we have a real problem with the rules in the House of Representatives in Congress. And there should not be a method that allows this omnibus bill that is, I think I saw a picture of it, this high, and that no one has time to read. I think there is an opportunity for a group of like-minded conservative candidates, conservative members, to change the rules and make sure that that does not happen again.
Catherine?
I would not have voted for the bill, and this was the first action by President Trump that I had to question my support of him as far as being 100% supportive of him and his ability to make good, wise decisions, and I'm back to about 99%. His redeeming factor was that the military spending would be used for building a wall. But compromise, I don't believe is a good thing. Standing on principle is a good thing. And the other thing I thought of in reading the summary of this bill, which was only less than 100 pages and almost made me, like Jim Comey said, physically nauseous, was I thought insanity, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. I don't think anyone even remembered that these very same things with regard to education, with regard to mental health, were tried under the Bush administration. $900 million for mental health, what good did that do? Just don't, it's not working. Vote no, period, no.
All right, Ms. Dunn, and this question is for you. Covington County is a rural county like many other Mississippi counties, and the projected national trends for rural areas show a declining population and jobs in rural areas as compared to urban areas. Without the intervention like President Trump's infrastructure initiative that set aside new investments for rural America, then Covington County would continue to fall further behind in jobs and new business opportunities. What is your position on federal programs specially targeting jobs and business growth for rural areas like Covington County? And how do you see the federal government strengthening rural areas' jobs and business opportunities?
So, first off, rural infrastructure is different than our urban counterparts. The whole state as a whole is rural. I mean, that's the facts. I think, to give you a stat, $102 million worth of federal grants came to the state of Mississippi in 2015 for specifically internet and broadband infrastructure. If you pull up on broadband.com and look at District 3, it didn't come to our district. The single highest broadband spent for infrastructure was in Washington County, Greenville, Mississippi. What about District 3? $102 million worth of grants came to Mississippi. District 3 did not get hardly any of it. And that was 2.9% of all the grants that went out from the federal government. We have to tap into those resources. They're out there, but we have to have a strong enough voice and somebody that understands it to get those dollars to Mississippi and District 3, because if we don't change it, our children and our grandchildren are going to go away and find jobs elsewhere. That's where we've got to focus on, and there are dollars out there.
Would another candidate like to respond?
There we go. Let me say this, there's no better poll or survey than talking to a candidate who has campaigned in every corner of a district. As I mentioned earlier, I went to all 24 counties in the first 3 weeks. I've been campaigning in all 24 counties. Shelley and I are going to all 24 counties over 48 hours. We're in the middle of doing that now. People are focused on more jobs, stronger economy, leadership with a backbone, somebody that will actually engage in the process and drive conservative legislation. And then quite honestly, what I've heard more than anything else is they want somebody who understands economic development. Somebody who understands how to bring opportunities to their community, and somebody who knows that those opportunities don't always represent positioning for new jobs and new investment. Sometimes those opportunities have to do with keeping the employers and the jobs that you already have in your community. And look, this is a big challenge, and this is a big conversation. You're talking about education and workforce and healthcare and infrastructure, and you know, the list goes on and on and on. And for us to be competitive as a state, we have to identify our priorities and stick to those priorities.
Two parts to that, Janice, for me. First of all, more government deficit spending is not going to lead us to prosperity in Covington County or anywhere else in the country. That's the first part. So principally, no, government programs aren't going to keep our children home and lead to opportunities. It does lead into, President Trump has this grand infrastructure plan, which is private-public partnership. For instance, Blackstone has a $100 billion fund they've raised that they're looking to make investments even in rural areas. And yes, there are government incentives. There's one reason they're looking to do that. And yes, we would take advantage of that. Look, I'm all for principle, but I'm also #1 for Covington County and the 3rd District, and we're going to use those federal dollars where we can, but we're going to create private business investment that I talked about, as Witta's talked about. That is why I'm running. We're going to do that, and that's going to lead to permanent job growth in service growth in places like Covington County.
And we have infrastructure needs throughout the 3rd Congressional District, whether you're talking about urban areas, whether you're talking about rural areas, but the needs differ. And what we need to make sure is that any money that comes to Mississippi, first, that we fight to see that the 3rd Congressional District has our piece of any money that we receive. And then we've got to see that that money is evenly distributed. We can't spend every dollar that we get in Hinds County to fix roads and bridges and water and sewage. That money has to be evenly distributed throughout the district to cover not only roads here, but also things such as broadband. We need to make sure that we have high-speed internet throughout the 3rd Congressional District. Not just in the more urban areas, but in the areas that currently lack that infrastructure.
Sally, or
I will just say that I think we need the federal government to get out of the way, and that is what I hear when I talk to agriculture, folks in agriculture, folks I know in banking, just all these different areas where the federal government has overreached so much. We need to get out of the way. So our people can do their work and prosper. Also, I think it's also important to work as a region. Often I've had economic developers tell me that they have a hard time recruiting industries in or getting an expansion for a different company because the numbers, the workers are not there, the numbers for the workers. And I think we've got to, maybe we need to do a better job, and we've got to work on working together as regions. Southwest Mississippi, this district goes all the way from Natchez up to Meridian. We need to have some more working partnerships, and I think that will lead to better results for the 3rd District.
Kathy?
I was just thinking of something, and Janice, I love you, but another point of contention that may or may not have to do with that recent question, but I actually would take money from George Soros, and I'll tell you why. There's a biblical principle for practically every public policy you can imagine. And the biblical principle for that would be it's called spoiling the Egyptians. It's called making your enemies your footstool. I would take their money, but I would not compromise. That's the problem with our politicians now, the rhinos. Those who say they're conservative, they take the money and then they compromise. So I would not compromise. You can do that, it's allowed. Make the enemies your footstool. Take the money and do the right thing.
Well, it's good to have so many independent thinkers. I'm so tired of just the same old spiel that everybody knows they're lying their heads off, so I'm glad to see the different opinions. And I have prayed for a month that God would let me keep my mouth shut, that I wouldn't say anything stupid like Hillary and Maxine Waters, and insult anybody like President Trump does, and God didn't answer that prayer, apparently. Michael, this question is for you. What is your position on reducing federal authority and returning decision-making authority to state and local government, particularly as it relates to divesting federal assets that could be better managed by state or local government or the private sector?
You know, I believe that government is best served on a local level. And I believe that when you elect your officials, that you're best served. I believe when you elect your elected officials that you are best served by those that are closest to you. So you start off with your municipal officials, then your county, then your state, and then your federal government. And so I believe that unless the federal government has been specifically granted authority under the United States Constitution, that those powers need to be returned to your local government. I believe that monies that go to state, they ought not come with strings attached, that that money ought to go to the state and the local governments, and they should decide how to best spend that money. If you have property that's located within jurisdictional boundaries, I think that the federal government needs to work with those local authorities to see what the best use of that property is. So again, I believe that government is best served on a local level. I believe our federal government has too much power. I believe that there has been federal overreach year after year after year, and I believe that power should be returned to the people.
All right.
Great. I would broaden that a little bit. Think of education policy. It shouldn't be set in Washington, D.C. That should go to the states. I think that goes to your question. That is one place that we could do that in Congress. The educational department should not be setting standards for education in Mississippi or Covington County. So I would start with that, Janice.
Anyone else wants to?
Well, I think the broader statement is less federal government and more local responsibility. That's with anything that we're talking about. Once the feds get in it, it's screwed up. I believe in term limits. But unfortunately, the other 453 in the House don't. 452. I gotta count that in there. But I mean, that is a true statement. The more federal government involved, the more complicated is it for us in the real world that's trying to live and breathe in Mississippi.
Well, I'll just simply say I'd be very surprised if anybody on this stage would tell you that the federal government is in better position to make decisions for you than we are for ourselves. That's very clear. But I think a lot about education. A good example is why I would never support something like Common Core. I mean, why is the federal government going to shove regulatory and other standards down our throats? I mean, the government that governs best for the people is the one closest to the people. And I believe that. Another area is healthcare. I know we don't have a lot of time with these responses, but I think there's a lot of room for innovative thinking and creative thinking when it comes to block granting federal dollars and giving those to states and other entities on local and regional levels and letting them be in the decision-making role.
All right, number 4. Let me find my list. Ms. Tate. One of the biggest challenges facing America's economy is low workforce participation, which has dropped to the lowest level in nearly 30 years, close to 63% nationally. And the trend projects the workforce participation rate to continue to drop through 2022. What is your position on the federal government's role in getting more Americans into the workplace?
I think in the last year that's actually risen quite a lot. as business and industry is more hopeful, as they see a president who is strong on America First, et cetera, et cetera. But as a fundamental principle, the government, the federal government, has basically two roles that I can see, and that is to protect property rights, your property, your individual property, and to defend our nation and our borders. Beyond that, if we could decentralize, and decentralize more, I think people would go back to work. When people are enabled by the welfare system which we have in our state, then businesses become, I think, despondent. Private individuals are not motivated. It's just a very bad situation when the federal government gets into the business of handling your private lives, and that's not their business at all.
Mr. Parker?
Sure, Janice, if we can, I don't even know that I need a microphone, but if we can, which one works? Neither of them.
I might have turned this one off.
There you go, come on.
Help me out here. All right, Janice, it could kill two birds with one stone. So you talked about getting people back to work. We can rein in federal government spending by reining in entitlement programs that can lead to people not participating in the workforce. Reining in entitlement spending could lead to a higher, look, if people don't want to work, they're not going to work, maybe, but that's how I would start. Rein in entitlements, that would give people more incentive to go to work. That's pretty simple, and we can do that starting January 1st.
And I think, to go back, deregulation. At Pioneer, when I was in McGee, I'm still in McGee, but at Pioneer Health Services, one of our largest issues was getting our workforce trained where they would stay. To Harry's point, sometimes they just don't want to work. But we would spend thousands of dollars to fly in people to come and work at Pioneer. When finally we realized, let's go to our local community colleges and do workforce development through our local community colleges, certifications. But when I say deregulation, most of your private businesses that are trying to be successful are going to be innovative. But we strap the small businesses. We strap them with regulations that they have to jump through hoops for, which only increase your cost on infrastructure. So deregulation is a key component to having a successful economy, local too.
So I've been really talking about workforce participation. I believe we have about 40,000 jobs available in Mississippi. If you go to the Mississippi Works website and app that the governor has really put out there, we have a lot of jobs available, and it is the combination, I believe, of entitlements. I was sitting here making a list. It is Section 8, TANF, SNAP, child care, Medicaid, disability. It is the combination of all those that I think may lead people to really have a substandard life and depend on the government rather than having that feeling of success and well-being when you have a job and you are really actively participating in life. And so I think we have to very compassionately look at those reforms. You know, SNAP, I think, which is food stamps, doubled, I believe, under the 8 Obama years. So I think we've got to pull that back. We can do that. And I think we're headed in that direction, and it is difficult. And there's going to be a lot of weeping and wailing.
Anyone else?
I'll be quick. Listen, I believe I understand economic development better than anybody else in this race. I've done it. I've traveled the country and the world doing economic development on behalf of our state. I will tell you, workforce is arguably the key driver. If you can't compete on the workforce topic, you're just not going to be in the game. And so I will tell you, I don't believe anybody in this room would say that just because this is the way the federal government does it, that means it's the best way. Again, to my earlier point, I think there's plenty of room for innovative thinking. Let's identify what works. Let's streamline it. Let's consolidate. And let's drive as much of the decision making down to the state and local levels as possible.
All right, the next question goes to, I've already forgotten. Six, Mr. Guest?
I was five.
Five, okay. The North America Free Trade Agreement is a trade agreement among Canada, Mexico, and the United States that went into effect in 1994 under President Clinton. The framework for the deal was first drafted under President Reagan in 1987. President Trump asserts that NAFTA is the worst deal in history. Yet Mississippi exports and free trade markets have grown 159% since 2006. What is your position on NAFTA and President Trump's desire to renegotiate it?
So the one thing I know about our president is that he is a negotiator. And we knew that when we elected him as our president. And he talked about all of these different trade agreements. Certainly NAFTA has been very important to Mississippi, especially with agriculture. It has really opened up a lot of markets for Mississippi. I think we've got to allow him some time. There is a larger plan in place, but we have to be very, very careful with what the results of that may be. You know, he put the steel tariffs in place, but then exempted Mexico and Canada. I believe there is a greater plan that is in play here, and I think we need to give our president time to work, but be cautious all at the same time.
Anyone else?
Listen, we need more trade deals. Mississippians make premium products that people around the world want. We need more trade deals. We need to make sure they're fair. We need to make sure they're based on free markets. We need to make sure they're sensible. And certainly that plays in our favor as Mississippians, especially in the agricultural and natural resources industries. NAFTA, if you consider the age of NAFTA, I think it's a perfectly sensible concept to take a look at how to update it and freshen it.
All right, Mr. Parker. Oh, you? Okay, Mr. Parker, this question is yours.
Thank you, Janice.
It's about time. 70% of Mississippians lack the education or training needed for jobs currently available in Mississippi. Statistics indicate that apprenticeship programs have a 90% success rate for those who enroll in these apprenticeship programs. These students graduate and find jobs with starting salaries of $60,000 or better. What is your position on expanding the focus of Mississippi's community colleges, whereas they can partner with a local business within a community to offer valid educational skills or specialized training that local industries or businesses need?
Janice, I'm glad you asked, and don't tell anybody we had that set up. Janice, it's exactly what I'm talking about with my platform. Our people and our resources are undervalued. We need to add investment to that mix. Businesses this day and age need labor, and they will train. I think Morgan has talked about it, where her company went in and paid for part of that training. That is available. That is out there. We have a great junior college network. That's one of the things that Mississippi is in the top of our country in, is our junior college network. Absolutely, we have to use that, but we have to add investment at the end of the day. I want to use this office to promote our great people and our resources and bring investment. This office, it's a new model for the state of Mississippi to use a congressional office to promote investment. That's what our governor has been doing. We can use this congressional office to do that, and it goes right to what you spoke about. Companies come here, they use our junior college network, and they train these people who need a job.
I agree. One of the biggest problems I think we face is workforce development. We need to use our community colleges so that we can train people how to perform the jobs where we have jobs looking for people. But I think we don't stop just at community colleges. I think we go down to the high school level. When I was in high school, we had a track where if you did not want to go to college, that you could can train to do certain jobs. You can train to learn how to be an auto mechanic. You can train how to do plumbing work. You can train how to do electrician work. Good, hard-paying jobs that people need. And I believe that we need to not limit that just to our community colleges. I think we need to expand that to our high schools, and we need to do a better job as a state training our workforce for the jobs that we have available.
That's a great question. As I said earlier about our partnerships that we would make with our local community colleges, and we didn't just do it in Mississippi. We were across the Southeast. We were in 5 different states where we actually employed hospitals and workers, so we needed everybody from clerical to high professions. And the way workforce development happens is at first, it's really right when they're getting into the K-5s, and you're wanting to develop programs that you can streamline locally that impact your local economy. So that is hugely important. But also, we've got development going on between our high schools and our community colleges right now where you can track. But if you look, some of our community colleges are dipping in their revenue to support their budgets because they're getting fast-tracked. So they're not getting through their full 2-year program. So they're losing revenue. So we've got to keep an eye on our community colleges because they're going to hurt if we don't form that partnership financially sound between the high schools and that next level community college.
You know, part of this is a cultural issue. You know, we have some cultural challenges. We have to get people to understand that there's nothing wrong with you if you're entering the workforce without a 4-year degree. And that is a real challenge. I'll tell you, there are some incredible opportunities in this state if you have the right skills and the right specialized training. I think of energy, for instance. A lot of people don't realize the importance of the energy industry in this county and the gas and fuel pipeline infrastructure that we have. I mean, it's an important asset on the national level, and I have to imagine that there are many people in Congress representing communities on the East Coast that understand how important Covington County is in that regard. But I'll certainly look forward to telling them all about it when I represent this district in Congress.
So there's a very successful apprenticeship program down with Ingalls Shipbuilding down on the coast. Ingalls is, I believe, our largest employer in Mississippi. I know at one time it had 11,000, I think maybe even more employees now. But I sat by the president of Ingalls one night at one reception, and he said, "Sally, you know, what I need is someone who can show up every day for work, who can pass a drug test, and then just who has basic skills. I'll provide the training. But I can't find people who will show up and can pass a drug test." And to me, that goes to some cultural issues that we have, and some core family values that we have in our state. And I think that this entitlement mentality we have is hurting our workforce. We have penalties. I spoke to a couple here just earlier tonight about being penalized for being married with some disability benefits that they had. I think we really have to take a look at what we're doing with our benefits.
I would just agree that workforce development, the apprenticeship programs are an excellent model, and that workforce development should be primarily the responsibility of industry. And I did work with Nissan in workforce development, and the same thing that Sally mentioned was exactly what they said. The soft skills are what is really needed. But working in partnership with them, another skill that they needed was laser welding. So they partnered with community colleges and Mississippi State University to meet that need. But industry has to drive the workforce development.
All right, just keep your microphone because the next question goes to you. Currently, 1,500 foreign nationals, 80% Honduran, are marching towards the United States border with assistance from the Mexican government and without any legal documents. These foreign nationals are demanding to enter the United States and be allowed to live in the United States. Liberals and leftists have begun demanding that illegal immigrants be allowed to vote in the United States elections and to serve on governmental boards. Their rationale for these demands is, first, that the illegal immigrants are living in the United States. Second, that illegal immigrants are making contributions to the United States. And third, that illegal immigrants are impacted by the policies and laws of the United States, and thus should have the same privilege to participate in the election process as United States citizens. Do you think that these 15 foreign nationals could be perceived as an invasion, and that these demands of illegal immigrants, if granted, destroy the sovereignty of the United States?
Definitely invaders, definitely illegal. Very briefly, and I'm sure everyone on this panel agrees, probably everyone in this room, illegals are illegals, they're lawbreakers. When I was teaching school, I would illustrate the concept with my students. When there was a problem with walking the halls, you know, students like to get out of class and walk the halls, and when someone would come to the door without a pass or without permission, the students knew that we would just call them illegal immigrants. Miss Tate, there's an illegal, they don't have a pass. You have to have permission to go into a classroom, wherever, a business, the country. There are only 3 things that are needed to even have a country. Do you know what those are? 3 things. You have to have land with people, you have to have sovereignty, any kind of government. If you don't have a government, that's anarchy, but sovereignty, a government of some sort, and you have to have borders. Otherwise, you don't have a country. Illegals are illegals, and certainly the invasion, and I heard about that recently, they should be treated as invaders. The problem also is people conflate compassion and the church's role of welcoming foreigners and strangers. Again, the biblical precedent for foreigners is that you are legal, you are there by permission, and when you come into the nation, you worship that God. Of course, that's not required here, but you go by the nation, the host nation's laws. So coming into the country illegally, you are immediately a lawbreaker, you're immediately a foreign invader.
I think Nancy Pelosi needs them because she's running out of votes. I've been to Arizona. I've seen what happens where the wall is not there, because I worked with the small hospitals that were there, and they were using citizens, us, along with law enforcement, to walk where they would come through. So it's not even, it is a, you're an illegal, you're an illegal. You're either legal or you're not. Get out. We're paying for them across the board. Whether it's health care, whether it's entitlement services, we're paying for them. And they're utilizing our resources that we love and adore and pay taxes for. We need to, I think the 12-year plan for Trump's plan is on point. I was talking to one of my friends. She came through, spent $6,000 to become legal. She gets mad when someone doesn't go through the proper avenues.
Mr. Parker?
Yes, quickly, broadly, immigration. 3 points. One is enforce the laws we have on the books. We don't need to do laws, we have the laws. Enforce the laws. Secondly, secure the border. The American people voted for it when we voted for Donald Trump. Congress and the person who wins this election to be part of it needs to fund the wall. That's secure the border. That's the second thing. The third thing is an easier and less expensive legal immigration process. We need immigrants to do a lot of jobs in this country, mainly agriculture, but Congress can streamline the legal immigration process and make it less expensive. It's common sense, Janice, but 3 points.
I believe we have a right to enforce our laws. I believe that we have a right to secure our borders. We currently have more than 12 million illegal immigrants in our country. If we replace them all in one geographic location, that would be bigger than the state of Ohio. We have to enforce our laws. We have to be able as a country to choose who we're going to allow into our country, not allowing people to illegally enter the country and say that you can stay. And so I believe that we need a border, we need a law, we need something that we can separate ourselves from other countries, and we need to be choosing who we're going to allow into our country.
We're a nation of immigrants. We need a rules-based process, a law-based process, so we can bring the best and the brightest here to contribute to society. I will tell you on this topic, any immigration plans must include securing the southern border. Where it logistically makes sense, we need a wall. In other places, we need to use technology and other surveillance. We need more boots on the ground. We need more boats in the water. We need more resources at checkpoints. I'm not in favor of amnesty. I'm not in favor of chain migration, and I'm certainly not in favor of a random visa lottery program.
And I would agree, there's not much left to say here on that. But here in the 3rd District, illegal immigration is a real problem. I was over in Scott County, over in Forest, and I believe 40%, I was told that 40% of the kids in their elementary school were illegals. And it is stressing out their school system and also a lot of their public systems as well. We've got to do something. It's here in our own communities, and certainly I am for enforcing our laws and building the wall and ending chain migration. And they talked about that when I was over there that day, the impact that's had in that community. We got to do something about it. It's here and it's real.
Sally, you keep the microphone.
Okay.
This is, I know our time is run out, but we haven't talked about guns and gun violence in schools.
Sure.
A current educational issue regards school safety and whether to arm classroom teachers or to hire retired military personnel to protect our children at school and at school functions. The contrast in the outcomes of the recent school violence in Parkland, Florida, where the security officer failed to respond quickly to an active shooter, resulted in 17 deaths, and the school shooting in Lexington, Maryland, where the security officer immediately responded to the active shooter, saved lives, indicates the difference that procedure and personnel makes. What is your position regarding the best action a community can offer to improve school safety at schools and its school functions? Should this issue be decided at the local level, or should it be a national policy?
I will tell you, in the state legislature this year, we had a bill to do just that, to provide that a school district could make a decision whether or not they wanted to have a school safety program. And you know, what you read in the newspaper is, oh, the teachers are going to have guns. You know, it is not what you read in the newspapers from the liberal press. It was a very targeted plan where a school district would decide if they wanted to have someone who had their enhanced carry permit to have additional training, another 30 hours of training, and then to keep renewing that training every 2 years. And what their plan was to use that person in the school, whether it would be one person on each wing of a school, or whether it would just be maybe someone in administration or a coach. So it was very structured about how a school could make that decision. I do think that is something that should be done. State law should allow for that. I believe there is also a federal bill that is being looked at right now as well. I voted for it in committee. I voted for it on the floor. It did not pass out of the legislature this year. It got hung up in conference committee. But I do think that is one answer to this terrible school violence. I think it is just atrocious what is going on. And then we also have to look at our schools. We're living in a different day. That is just the reality of it. And I would not mind my child walking through a metal detector or having a school resource officer at each school. But what I know in reality from serving in the state legislature and dealing with budgets is not every school is going to be able to afford that. So I think it is important to allow our schools the flexibility to develop that plan the way they want to.
Anyone else wants to address that? Okay.
So we absolutely have to secure our kids in our schools. Absolutely. Do not take away my Second Amendment rights, number one. If teachers want to be armed and go through the training that our law enforcement goes through, yes. Arming administration, Yes. Each county has their own subset of differences in the schools, and we can't afford to put up some of the things that are being thrown out. It's financially unreasonable. We have to figure that out. But more importantly that I think is left out in the world, that especially in the United States and the world, we have a mental health issue. Our police force, our policemen, our schools, we have a mental health issue. Take the Parkland kid. I don't know if, oh crap, okay, Parkland kid, I'll be real quick. His mom died, his dad died, he got kicked out of the only support system that he knew with a major mental health problem. We've got to get our arms wrapped around our mental health. It is from cradle to grave. I've seen it in the health industry. It is not guns. People kill people. And we have to secure our schools, but we also have to fix mental health and get the support systems we need to support our kids and to support the older population too. Because you ask any sheriff, any city officer, what their biggest concern is in your local communities, it's going to be your mental health.
All right, Mr. Guest, and then Whit.
Just as we've recently created church security teams for members of the church to keep other members safe, I believe we need school security teams. It should be mandated. People who are teachers, faculty, administrators who want to participate should be allowed to. They should be trained by law enforcement for law enforcement tactics as to what to do in case a situation arises. What we often forget in 1997, the Pearl High School shooting. Luke Woodham went to Pearl High School. He shot and killed Christina Menifee, shot and killed Lydia Duke, shot 7 other students. Luke Woodham was apprehended when a school administrator went to his vehicle, retrieved his weapon, and placed Luke Woodham in custody before law enforcement could arrive. If that administrator had not had access to that gun, Luke would have had time to reload and cause additional carnage there at Pearl High School. If we arm our teachers, we create additional first responders. They serve as a deterrent. They're there in the school at the time the incident arises. So I, as a parent, would feel much safer knowing that my student, my child, was in school and the teachers, the faculty, and the administrator were armed and properly trained.
Mr. Hughes.
Mine is a campaign that includes all 24 counties in the district. I've talked about this topic at kitchen tables and conference room tables. And I will tell you, I really agree with folks when they say what's important to them is that we ensure that our children don't live in fear that their schools are not safe places. They also talk about ensuring law enforcement officers have the resources necessary to follow up on reports and leads that represent threats to our schools and our teachers and our students. And lastly, folks really believe that if trained teachers want to arm themselves to protect them and their students, then the federal government should certainly not stand in their way.
I'll make one comment, because I agree with you. But that administrator that stopped Luke Woodham was a National Guardsman that had been trained, very highly trained.
Well, our time is up, and I still have just as many questions left. Rick, how I knew to time all of you people. But I think all of our candidates, I think you've done a fabulous job tonight and have given us insight into our issues, and I wish we could keep talking about all the other issues we have. We do appreciate you coming, and we appreciate the voters that's going to make a major decision for your lives. Thank you.